Everyone was having a good old time, and my friend Shad was there, and Shad is a very quite respectful young man who doesn't...
He doesn't do anything bad.
He doesn't... No, he doesn't instigate much shit, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
He keeps to himself, is what I'm saying.
When you've been on the internet as long as I have, you see a lot of things. The rises, the falls, the trials and tribulations, the great, the good, the terrible, all that jazz. The subject of today's case file should be known to most, if not all of you. But if you're not familiar with the man in question, I'll give you a couple of details. Goes by the name of Shadman. He used to rub shoulders with some of the most popular content creators online. He's an erotic artist by trade. Cuts quite the controversial figure. I've seen some of his work, and some of it's pretty darn good. Some of his work is questionable at best, and borderline illegal at worst. Believe you me, that isn't something I want to get into. Now, I'm not gonna wax long and lyrical like some kind of history professor. I'm just a detective. We'll pick up our story in the year 2020. Shad, I hope you don't mind if I call him Shad, was posting pretty regular updates to his website, Shadbase, for quite a few years. Artwork, comics, cosplays, that kind of thing. But on the 30th of June 2020, Shad posted a comic to his site with an update saying he was taking on outside work that would take his attention away from Shadbase, and that he'd be posting simpler drawings on his website from then on. To this day, almost 2 years on, there's been only 2 more updates to the website since he made that announcement, which I'm sure you'll agree isn't exactly a good omen. To pick up the trail of his story, we're gonna have to go to one of the worst joints in town, Twitter. The content of his tweets were typical for Shad, and he wasn't tweeting excessively, unlike some of the poor, unfortunate saps I've seen on that hell site. On the 11th of September, Shad confirmed again that he was still working on a freelance gig, that he should be finished come the winter and then he could focus on his own website again, or so he thought. Going through his tweets in November and December of 2020, Shad mentioned a few times that he was running behind schedule with his work. The deadline was in November and he was still trying to finish his work in December. He even went so far as to say that he wouldn't release it if he was unhappy with his own work. Up to the present time, whatever Shad was working on has never seen the light of day. And then, with great relief to us all, 2020 ended.
Fuck 2020!
Shadman appears to have been absent from Twitter in January of 2021. Either that or most of his tweets were deleted. He's been known to purge swathes of his own tweets before. He'd ended the previous year with a desire to start drawing again, to show people what he'd learned during his absence. But instead, he went radio silent for almost 2 months. Something changed. On the 24th of February, Shad posted a photo of what I can only assume is someone cosplaying as Shadman himself. By looking at the photo, you could see it as a joke or some kind of apology for being gone for so long without a word. And then the mass tweeting started. It's nothing like the kind of stuff he's gonna do later down the line, but for the next 2 or 3 days, Shad spent time replying to a whole lot of people. On the 1st of March, Shad finally uploaded a new piece of artwork to Shadbase, and I have to say, what a piece. A combination of a stained glass window and a playing card with what is clearly an impression of one of Shad's muses, Belle Delphine, as the figure on the card. It's obvious to anyone that this piece must have taken a whole lot of time and effort, and people were rightfully impressed by Shadman's handiwork. People hoped this was the start of Shad getting back into drawing, getting back to his website and regular content uploads. His tweets seemed normal, and the amount of tweets he was posting wasn't excessive, but by the 10th of March, Shad had disappeared again. Over the next few months, Shad came back to Twitter now and again. He was mainly posting lots of photos of himself in different locations, which seems to imply he was traveling. Now, Shad's always been a very private person. He's never officially revealed too many details about his personal life, and he's always covered his face with a balaclava and selfies. So whether or not this is actually Shadman or a cosplayer or just one of his friends, I can't say. He seemed to have moved into a different social circle as well. In one of his tweets from this time, he described the people he was surrounding himself with as intellectuals, said he'd been reflecting on his past self and changing into a better person. Gee, I hate to say it, but you can really see Shadman shoving his own head up his ass in some of these tweets. Must have had a great view out from behind his molars. He wasn't being harsh or nasty or nothing like that. He actually seemed to be fairly personable still. Just good old Shadman giving out his advice and seeming to give a fig about things. Most of his tweets around this time were long and they seemed intelligent enough. Looking back on these events, it's just strange thinking how far and fast he'd fall over the next few months. By the end of August 2021, something had changed. The long, seemingly intelligent and lucid tweets of the previous months were gone, replaced by short posts that were more like attempts at memes. He'd stopped praising himself and his newfound intellectual friends, and he'd clearly stopped making an attempt to better himself. His Twitter became an absolute train wreck of schizo posting. The change was so sudden and so extreme that someone who'd spoken to Shadman before theorized that it wasn't actually him using the account, that Stamper had hacked into Shadman's account, using his friend's Twitter to air his own personal demons. People could tell there was a sudden shift in Shad's personality, so the Stamper theory gained some traction. Stamper got several of his Twitter accounts banned owing to his constant outbursts, so it fits his MO. However, that wasn't the case. Turned out that it was indeed Shadman in control of the account, and that, sadly, he'd gone down a similar path as Stamper. By the end of September, Shad was tweeting an ungodly and, quite frankly, unhealthy amount. Most of it's completely indecipherable, and it's hard to take any of it seriously when it's obvious he was in such a messed up state of being. But what we do have a lot of is photos. And you know what they say, picture can paint 1,000 words. Towards the end of September and into October, Shad's tweets were mostly replies with GIFs, emojis, and other such incomprehensible nonsense. Scattered throughout this barrage of absent-minded shitposting were photos Shad had taken, like golden nuggets in a prospector's pan. The photos showed the state of his apartment, the absolute mess that his computer was in, an assortment of various broken sundries. But one of the most alarming clues as to what was happening to Shad was in the background of this photo, a prescription for Adderall. People started to notice other items in the photos, things that appeared to be narcotics paraphernalia. Now, I can't say for sure, I never worked with the boys in the Vice Squad, but it's concerning to say the least. Soon enough, the content of Shad's photos changed. No more snaps of his trashed apartment. Now he was uploading a lot of photos outdoors, shady alleyways, and other questionable places. Places you'd probably read about in a detective novel, not somewhere you'd expect to see a popular artist hanging out. As it was approaching the end of October, he took photos of Halloween decorations. Very festive. Most people refer to this time as the Homeless Saga. It doesn't take an experienced gumshoe to work it out. I'd bet my bottom dollar that somebody snitched to Shad's landlord about the photos, about Shad's declining mental state, or possible usage of prohibited narcotics, and ultimately, he got shown the door soon afterward. After not finishing his super-secret project on time and not posting his website for a good long while, Shad may have found himself without the cabbage to pay his rent, but I'm just theorizing here. Now, there is something I need to bring up here, and it might shed a little light into why Shadman went off the rails so quickly and unexpectedly. And again, I'm just theorizing here. I can't confirm or deny any of this. Shadman's mother may have passed away, or someone in his family. He's since deleted the tweets themselves, but on the 2nd of October, Shad posted a picture of a gravestone with his iconic face mask obscuring some of the important details. Shadman seems to have had a conversation on Discord with his mother. If it really is his mother, she must have passed away recently. His mask covers up the date on the gravestone, so we'll probably never know for sure. But like I said, I'm just throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks. On the 22nd of October, Shadman vanished from Twitter again. At this point, it wasn't unusual for Shad to vamoose for a good while, but after his assumed period as a bindle punk, or homeless miscreant to those of you who aren't clued in on the proper jargon, people started wondering what had caused his absence this time. On the 1st of November, someone on Kiwi Farms, I like that name, revealed that Shadman had actually been arrested for assault with a deadly weapon. Not much is known about what Shadman actually did, but people assume he went out and shivved somebody. Just a few days before the incident, Shadman uploaded a photo of himself holding what I can only assume is a railroad spike, as if he was holding a knife. Shad's known to be quite the prolific knife appreciator as well, so it's easy to assume that'd be his weapon of choice. In mid-November, Shadman returned to Twitter. At first it was just photos of his stuff, a proverbial smorgasbord of random items and other junk, with a couple of nostalgic odds and ends mixed in. Confusing, to say the least, especially seeing as he'd clearly gone through some kind of mental breakdown and subsequent arrest. But the situation became clear soon enough. Shad's next upload was a photo of somebody's living room, complete with a coffee table and a girl sitting on a couch. Despite the girl's features being out of frame, a couple internet detectives were quick to figure out that the girl was smoking Mikey, an acquaintance of a guy called Mick, also known as Rice Pirate, is a popular content creator and voice actor, and one of the old veterans of the Newgrounds gang Shadman was once a part of. Clearly, Shad had made bail, but I do wonder whether he paid for it out of his own pockets or if Mick paid for it. And it seems as though Mick took Shad in from the cold. Mick's well known for being a stand-up kind of guy, so it's not out of character for him to extend a helping hand to a friend in need. Clearly, Mick knew and trusted Shad enough to take him in. What with the criminal assault charge, possible drug addiction, and just the previous month, Shad having a very public falling out on Twitter with one of him and Mick's close friends, Spares Kid. When you're so far removed from a situation and even less details are available, it's difficult to fully understand what was actually happening around that time. But from where I'm standing at least, this was just a clean-cut case of one friend helping out another friend at their lowest point. But sadly, it didn't last long. For the next month or so, Shad uploaded lots of photos to Twitter. He seemed to have calmed down a hell of a lot, but the sometimes silent and aimless wanderer Shad had been the previous month somehow transformed into an increasingly arrogant or perhaps defensive personality. Most of Shad's posts around this time were just him trying to prove that he had money or that he wasn't homeless. Unfortunately, the pictures of mindless destruction started to creep their way back in. Shad seemed to be going back down the hole he'd only recently managed to surface from, only this time it was in his friend's home. The trail goes cold around this time. When Shad seemingly became homeless before, it was easier to piece things together. But at this point, he just appeared to be uploading all the photos, so it's difficult to figure out exactly what was happening. His last tweets were on the 6th of January 2022, but there was nothing spectacular or out of the ordinary. And as of today, just over 4 months to the day, Shad hasn't resurfaced. Not a word. No arrests. His court appearance is apparently going through in an ongoing continuance, and apparently he doesn't need to be present for those dates. At least I think that's what non-appearance means. I'm a detective, not an ambulance chaser. But there's just one more thing I'd like to mention. Another little theory that's been circulating around the internet. We can surmise from the evidence we have that Mick possibly bailed Shad out of jail and took him in for a time, and that after a few weeks, Shad's erratic and self-destructive behavior started to resurface. This must have been too much for Mick to handle, even more so seeing as he had a roommate, and ultimately, Mick must have shown Shadman the door. Even the most stand-up of stand-up guys have their limits. Hell, I'd go so far as to say what with his voice acting and artwork career, Mick took one hell of a chance taking someone as divisive as Shadman in from the cold. But that's what friends do. The resurgence of outdoor photos was what first alerted people to the fact that Shadman was probably homeless again. But one of the hard-working troopers over at Kiwi Farms, I really do like that name, pointed out an interesting note in one of the photos Shad had posted. The theory goes that it's a letter to Shad from Mick himself, asking him to leave the apartment. Obviously, Shad didn't take too kindly to whatever it said, as he's clearly destroyed it with his own inane ramblings, burn marks, and where he ripped the paper. Now, Shad's clearly destroyed the letter too much to be able to decipher what it said properly, but there's a few things that can be made out. Now, you'll have to bear with me here. As I said, the context is completely lost owing to what Shad's done to the paper. Our paths are not crossing for being overly trials and tribulations. This part could say preferential than other. Make sure you here, so let me, you'd like, off at the other. As you can see, it's incredibly difficult to make out even one intact sentence. I think I can piece something together at the bottom. Off at the other location, I'll have the keys. Much love, Sergeant Mitchell. I'd like to think that last part's a little joke Mick left in. A nod to his role as the main character of the criminally underrated game Hunt Down the Freeman.
You lied to me.
No, that wasn't the deal. He told me. Mitch, please.
You betrayed me. You used me. You fucked up my
apartment. But whether Mick wrote it or Shad scrawled it on there in a fit of rage, I can't really say. In my mind, I think Mick was trying to patch up whatever had happened to their friendship while Shad was staying with him, as well as offering to take Shad to either a rehab facility or a homeless shelter. And seeing as Shad decided to vandalize the letter and post it publicly on Twitter, it's clear that he didn't take it as intended. What with his absence since January, people are assuming Shadman's gone to rehab. Working on him, proving himself might work in his favor regarding his court case. And it would explain why his case keeps getting non-appearance continuances. Unless someone involved comes forward and spills the beans, we'll never know actually what transpired. So this is all just speculation. But as I said before, Shadman's fall from grace was so sudden and unexpected that I don't think many people could have seen it coming. We started with Shadman taking a break from his art to work on a project, which never came to light. He took time out to travel with new people and try to better himself, which somehow led him into, or worsened, what I can only assume was a severe drug addiction. He produced one last amazing piece of artwork before losing his home, ending up on the streets, and in trouble with the law. A friend's kindly gesture ultimately wasn't enough to save him from his demons, landing him back on the sidewalk again, and now, silence. Maybe he's still out there somewhere, wandering. Maybe he's in rehab. We probably won't know for a while. But that's internet fame for you. One day you're the talk of the town, the next, you're just a shadow of the man you once were. I'll catch you next time, if you got time.